Christmas time again, folks. So I wanted to talk about one of my favorite scenes ever from a Christmas classic, A Christmas Carol. Which one, you ask? There's more than one? Oh, you mean there are this many versions? Well, let's look at a few of the famous ones and see the differences, as it's one of the rare times there's multiple, and I mean multiple, versions of the same book brought to screen and theater. And Marley's ghost confronting Scrooge has always been one of my favorite scenes ever.
You wear helmets when you ride your bikes, you have seat belts in your cars, you have alarm systems to protect your homes. But what do you do when those alarms go off? Crazy is building your ark after the flood has already come.
We will be using the book, of course, as reference in comparing three versions of Marley's Ghost. The first is the 1951 version called just Scrooge, starring Alastair Sims as the title character and Sir Michael Hordern as Marley's Ghost. The 1984 made-for-TV movie A Christmas Carol, starring George C. Scott as Scrooge and Frank Finlay as Marley. And finally, the 1999 made-for-TV movie of the same name, starring Patrick Stewart as Scrooge and Bernard Lloyd as Marley.
It was a very low fire indeed. Nothing on such a bitter night. He was obligated to sit close to it and brood over it before he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago and paved all round with quaint Dutch tiles, designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Cains and Abels, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like featherbeds, Abrahams, Belshazzars, apostles pulling off to sea in butterboats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts. And yet that face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like the ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up the whole.
Indigestion.
I love how the 1951 version doesn't even try to do the face in the tiles. I mean, it is 1951 after all, so I'm guessing the special effects weren't the easiest to pull off back then. And the 1984 does do it, but they just throw it over the Last Supper, just a soup and a sandwich with Jesus, I guess. And meanwhile, the 1999 version goes pretty much by the book, having multiple tiles with Marley's face showing up, and might I add, doing a great job at blending his face with the tiles for a 1999 made-for-TV movie.
It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks of the wine merchant's cellar. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it."
"It's humbug still, I won't believe it."
No, I won't believe it.
His color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up, as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost!" and fell again. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head.
What business do you want with me?
Much.
What do you want with me? Much!
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
All right, who were you then?
In life, I was your partner. Jacob Marley.
Who are you, sir?
Ask me who I was.
Very well. Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
You're particular for a ghost. Who are you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Can you sit down?
I can.
Well, do it then.
Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them, a slight disorder of the stomach. There might be a bit of bad beef, a blot of mustard.
A fragment of underdone potato.
Moldy cheese. An underdone turnip.
There's more gravy than grave about you.
There's more of gravy than of grave in you.
There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. Humbug, I tell you, humbug!
But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round its head as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down upon its breast.
What is it? Speak up, man.
Little differences between versions here. In the book, Scrooge asks Marley if he can see a toothpick he's holding. This is only shown in the 1951 version. The book also describes an atmosphere surrounding Marley. Only the 1999 version shows this. I also love how Patrick Stewart plays Scrooge here. He's almost more stubborn and less afraid. It's a different take than the other two, that's for sure.
Why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me?
The question becomes why? What are they hiding?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turn to happiness.
Why do spirits walk the earth? Why do you come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared, and turn to happiness.
But why do you walk the earth? And why do you come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men. If it goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turn to happiness.
I love every version of Marley here. Each actor playing the role differently. Bernard Lloyd is almost talking under his breath and he comes off scary, but not scream at the top of your lungs scary. More like holding the torment in scary. And Frank Finlay is the next notch up, and his regret is shown through that bone-chilling scream every time. And then even on another notch up is Sir Michael Hordern, who is howling out in agony so much, it sounds like Doc Brown.
You are fettered, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link.
Link by horrifying link!
Is its pattern strange to you? Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was as full, as heavy, and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain.
Scrooge glanced about him on the floor in the expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing. Jacob, he said imploringly. Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
Jacob, tell me more. Speak comfort to me.
I have none to give. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole.
No doubt of that. You always were a good man of business.
Business! Mankind was my business. Their common welfare was my business. And it is at this time of the rolling year I suffer most.
But I have come for your sake, Ebenezer.
Have you? Well, you always were a good friend.
As part of my penance, I have been sent to warn you.
And so you have?
And to offer you a hope and chance of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is this the chance you spoke of?
It is.
In that case, I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread.
Couldn't they all come at the same time, Jacob, and have it over?
Expect the 2nd on the stroke of 2. The 3rd, more mercurial, shall appear in his own good time.
Differences here are the times. In the book, it's 3 separate nights, but it feels like one night to Ebenezer. Also in the book, the 3rd spirit has an actual time he'll show up. My favorite version is the 1984 movie where Marley warns the final spirit will just show up whenever he wants.
Look for me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us. The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant, whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was, clearly, that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever.
Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
Ebenezer, remember when I was alive, I robbed the widows and swindled the poor?
Yes, and all in the same day. Oh, you had class, Jacob.
Yep. No,